Hey everyone. Last week I did a video about 1 John, and it was concerning where it says little children, young men, and fathers. I'm going to link that video down in the description. You can check that out. And today we're going to go back into 1 John, and I'm going to show a concept that John is talking about throughout the letter. You may know all of this or none of it, but I'm going to share it anyway. Last week I did a little introduction. I introduced to you a tea that I was drinking, lemon tea. Maybe we might do that again just because I got a tea with me here today. I got a peppermint tea, peppermint decaf tea, and it's good for like if you have sinuses. It kind of clears up your sinuses, and it's also a good stomach digestion helper if you're having trouble digesting something. Peppermint tea. So yeah, maybe I'll cover a tea every video I do, and probably not though. But okay, let's get into the scriptures here. John is basically refuting this group called the Gnostics throughout his letter. Now the word Gnostic or Gnosis in the Greek means knowledge. This group of Gnostics thought that they could obtain this special knowledge or secret knowledge wherein they could know God or have fellowship with God, where their spirit would be released from this prison of a body through this secret knowledge, because of this secret knowledge. And John is going through the book of 1 John, and every time he says, we know this, we know that, he's refuting the knowledge of the Gnostics. Let's go and examine a couple of these where he's saying we know, in order to see what we're supposed to know, versus what they knew. The first verse that we're gonna, now this isn't all of the knows, but this is a few of them that I'd like to cover. You can go back and read the whole book of 1 John with this in mind, but we're going to start at 1 John 3:19. It says, "And by this we know that we are of the truth and shall assure our hearts before him." Let's back up a little bit to verse 17. "But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth." And then the verse that I read first. "Now by this we know that we are of the truth and we shall assure our hearts before him." So those who know that we are of the truth, they lay down their lives for their brethren, like it says in verse 16, and they don't shut up their heart when the brother needs goods. They love in deed and in truth, and not just by words. So the Gnostics probably would have thought that, hey, they can love in word and tongue and not deed. They could make a simple profession of this or that, and that was enough. Kind of like false Christians do today. The next verse that we're going to go to is 1 John 3:24. "Now he who keeps his commandments abides in him, and he in him. And by this we know that he abides in us, by the Spirit whom he has given us." So you can see that we know that we keep his commandments, meaning Jesus' commandments. They would not say that. The Gnostics say, no, we don't have to keep his commandments. And there's other verses too that mention that we keep his commandments. It doesn't have the phrase we know in there, but it still says it. 1 John 2:3, for example, and 1 John 5:2. The next verse we're going to go to is 1 John 4:6. It says, "We are of God. He who knows God hears us. He who is not of God does not hear us. By this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error." So whoever knows God hears us, the things that he's talking about here. Whoever is not of God doesn't want to hear it. They don't want to hear stop sinning. They don't want to hear love in deed and in truth. They don't want to hear it because they're not of God. We know that. The next verse that I want to cover is 1 John 4:13. And it says, "By this we know that we abide in him and he in us, because he has given us his Spirit." So we know that we kind of got to back up a little bit. So let me read verse 12 actually. "No one has seen God any time. If we love one another, God abides in us, and his love has been perfected in us. By this we know that we abide in him and he in us, because he has given us his Spirit." So we know that when we love one another, that God abides in us. So that's one thing we know. If we don't love one another, we know that God does not abide in us. The next we know that I want to cover is in 1 John chapter 5, and it's verse 18. 1 John chapter 5, 18, 19, and 20. Now I'm going to kind of shotgun these we knows. This is kind of where he wraps up the we knows. Verse 18, it says, "We know that whoever is born of God does not sin, but he who has been born of God keeps himself, and the wicked one does not touch him. We know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. And we know that the Son of God has come and has given us an understanding, that we may know him who is true, and we are in him who is true, in his Son, Jesus Christ. This is the true God and eternal life." So there was 3 we knows right there. Whoever has been born of God does not commit sin. We know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. And we know the Son of God has come and has given us understanding, that we may know him who is true. So I want to focus on verse 20 there. It says, we know that the Son of God has come and has given us understanding, so that we may know him. So the understanding, the way that we know God is because Christ gives us understanding, right? That's how we gain the knowledge that we know, is because Christ gives us understanding. And we know that happens by, humbling ourselves, repenting of our sins, turning from our ways, and focusing on obeying Jesus Christ. It's kind of cool just to see these concepts laid out. All these we knows, this true knowledge versus the false knowledge of the Gnostics. One final thing, I guess that 2 more things that I want to mention. There's actually 2 or even 3 words for knowledge in the Greek language. There's, and I may not pronounce these right, but eidos, E-I-D-O-S, which is knowledge. But this knowledge is knowledge that you see. It's perceived. It's sensed by your senses, your 5 senses. It's something that you can come to know. But let me give you an example. If I learn someone's name, I eidos their name, right? Doesn't mean I know them as a person, that we know each other. That's gnosis, G-N-O-S-I-S. When you know someone else, when you know God the Father, when you know Jesus Christ, that's gnosis. But if you just know facts about God, facts about Jesus, and don't really know them personally, that's eidos, right? So we can go from eidos, knowing stuff about Jesus, knowing stuff about God, to actually gnosis, knowing God. It's usually from one person to another. There's a subject and there's an object. And we do that by him giving us understanding. So I kind of put a picture here so that you can kind of understand that, how idos can turn into gnosis of God, of Jesus, by the understanding that he gives us. The second thing that I want you to see here is in 1 John chapter 4 verses 3. This is just a side note, that the Gnostics believes that Jesus Christ did not come in the flesh. They believed that the flesh was evil, the material world, any matter that you could see was evil, and the spirit was good. So if Jesus Christ was good, then he could have not come in the flesh. Maybe he was like an apparition or a ghost or a spirit or whatever. But no, this isn't the case. All matter in and of itself is not evil. A lot of people believe that, especially once you become a Christian, that this flesh is evil. They say that we're always going to have a sinful nature, that flesh is evil. There's nothing evil in and of itself about the material world. It's how you use it. It's what you do through your members. It's your mind set on your members. Your members in and of themselves are not sin. It's the mind set on the members. It's the carnal mind that makes it evil. So, he's saying that in 1 John verse 4, 1 John chapter 4 verse 3, it says, every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world. So, the Gnostics didn't believe that Jesus Christ had come in the flesh. They believe he only came in the spirit. And the Christians know that he came in the flesh. Matter of fact, if you go back to 1 John chapter 1, verse 1, John says, that which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked on, and our hands have handled. So that's the reason why he's saying that. Because John wants to communicate to you that Jesus was flesh, because he touched him, he listened to him, he saw him. And he wants you to not only just, see God, but also know him and know that you are in him. He wants you to gnosis God. So, yeah, I hope you got something out of this lesson. The true knowledge versus the false knowledge of the Gnostics. In today's church, I think that there's a lot of neo-Gnosticism around that. People say, the Catholics have the teaching concerning, Mary was sinless, born without sin, so therefore Jesus Christ could be born without sin. When the book of Hebrews says that Jesus Christ came in the same flesh, he shared in the same as us. He was born just like us. There's a lot of neo-Gnosticism or a new type of Gnosticism in today's Christian churches, and beware of it. Don't believe some of the things that the Gnostics believe, such as you can live in sin and still have a clean spirit. Once saved, always saved would be an example of that. You could sin and your spirit's still clean because, hey, once saved, always saved. So be careful out there. Do not be deceived. God bless you.